Good day. Warhammer Fantasy was one of the best-kept secrets in the fantasy genre. Its novels painted a world of epic deeds and fell foes, and it was the universe where the epic duo Gotrek and Felix resided. If not for Warhammer Fantasy, I would have never actually gained an interest in fantasy literature. I'd always figured that fantasy was a bunch of purple prose nonsense, or, barring that, a bunch of Harry Potter idiocy. Warhammer Fantasy showed that fantasy could be grounded in some realism and could have mature plots and characters. Warhammer Fantasy was created by Games Workshop and was a tabletop miniatures game that became quite popular starting in the 1980s. It would give rise to a sci-fi version called Warhammer 40k, and that franchise would rise massively in popularity. But there were still many fans of Warhammer Fantasy. Alas, it would seem that Warhammer Fantasy didn't sell quite as many models as 40k, and thus the G-Dubs decided to cancel it in the worst possible way. You maniacs! You blew it up! God damn you all to hell! G-Dubs decided to blow up the entire Warhammer Fantasy universe, thus killing all the characters that the fans had grown to love. And then they made a new universe, endgame, called Age of Sigmar. The game was more like 40k, and the world was more light-hearted, in the same vein as World of Warcraft. This divided the fanbase, and some like me see it as a huge betrayal. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is Realmslayer? Well, it is G-Dub's attempt to lure in new fans by bringing back fan-favorite Gotrek Gurnison. He didn't die when the universe blew up, and now he is in Age of Sigmar land. Realmslayer is an audio drama starring Brian Blessed as Gotrek, and while he turns in a great performance, he is much too nice to be Gotrek Gurnison. Gotrek is a half-mad dwarf that lives to slaughter the forces of chaos, and Brian Blessed does not pull that off at all. In a previous audio drama, Slayer of the Storm God, the actor voicing Gotrek did a much better job nailing down Gotrek's character. So, Gotrek gets spat out in the Age of Sigmar, and we the audience are slowly introduced to new factions and new conflicts within this universe. And all throughout, Gotrek is busy taking the piss, just like this crusty old Warhammer Fantasy fan. So, he shows up at a volcano where dwarves made of fire inhabit. Gotrek, upon seeing the Duardin, immediately starts kicking the crap out of him. This is quite satisfying, seeing as how the Duardin are so overblown, so overwrought, that they do need a good hiding. But gets captured by the fire dwarves, also known as the Duardin, and thrown into a prison with an elf. Said elf was trying to get a magical fire gubbin. This sets up a subplot where the elf constantly shows up, and basically she feels like Team Rocket from Pokemon, and it really feels pretty bloody juvenile and very Saturday morning cartoonish. Eventually, a Duardin figures out that Gotrek is essentially Dwarf Jesus, and decides to let him out of the prison. Gotrek learns that Felix might be reincarnated as a Stormcast Eternal. I'm sure somebody thought that sounded cool, but it just sounds overwrought. So, Gotrek sets out to find Felix, who might be alive, sort of. On the way, he crosses paths with a human prince, and that prince is set up to be a major character, but he's killed off in a battle shortly after he is introduced. Gotrek learns that the prince has been betrayed by his brother, and said brother is intent upon sneaking into and capturing Hammerhall. Yeah, Age of Sigmar's world is very, very overblown, and it just seems really silly. The reason why it is actually so overblown is because these overblown names are much more copyrightable than the names seen in Warhammer Fantasy. So, Gotrek goes on a tour of a number of lands of the Age of Sigmar world as he travels to Hammerhall to warn them of the impending attack. He is teamed up with a fanboy dwarf that should be endearing but comes off as annoying. He eventually gets a crazy mage companion as well that has little character and is all too predictable. The Skaven put in an appearance all throughout the audio drama, and the voice acting for them is rather amusing, as they love to shout, "Kill, kill!" over and over again. They fare about as well as they did back in Warhammer Fantasy. Eventually, they make it to the realm of the undead, and of course, Gotrek gets to talk with an old companion, but that companion is not the fair-haired Felix, but rather Snorri Nosebiter. And apparently Gotrek can just talk to his ghost, and they are apparently good buddies again? Why didn't Gotrek talk to his best friend Hamnir? I guess the writers forgot about him? There is a battle in the Land of the Dead that is rather indistinct. Audio dramas can be rather hard to follow if there are a bunch of sound effects. And this is a problem throughout the entire bloody audio drama. Half the time, it's hard to keep track of just what is going on. The battle is between Gotrek and a large lizard monster. As you would expect, it falls to Gotrek's insatiable appetite for violence. One of the humans dies in the battle, and that reminds Gotrek of Felix. And this sadly starts Gotrek's decline as a character. Gotrek was Felix's dwarf friend. He was not Felix's bro in any sense of the word. Gotrek was a dwarf, not a short human, and thus had different thought processes. He would certainly never pine over Felix in any way. And eventually, after a few predictable twists and turns, Gotrek makes it to Hammerhall, and there's a battle already going on, and instead of getting stuck in, Gotrek gets drunk and complains that he can't find Felix. After wanting to destroy the files, I continued on only to get more annoyed by the ending. The good guys win, as you would expect. Gotrek kind of gets over Felix, and he sets out in search of adventure with an elf. A goddamn elf. And also, he begrudgingly supports the elf's plan. Betrayal, thy name is Games Workshop. Really, this whole audio drama comes off as Saturday Morning Gotrek. It's massively overblown and very juvenile. The battles are decent, but they are massively toned down from what they were back in Warhammer Fantasy. Hell, the whole universe has been massively toned down from Warhammer Fantasy, and everything just feels shallow. The biggest problem with this audio drama is the fact that Gotrek was never meant to be a main character. He was more or less an ambulatory axe that contributed to the plot here and there, but was meant to be the big badass that killed the big boss at the end of the novel. To get Gotrek to be the main character, they had to tone him down and thus make him a bit too nice, and he comes off as the Fox Kids version of that character. All that being said, the audio drama on its own is very basic and lacks a memorable plot or memorable characters. At best, it works as a minor quest in an RPG game. It's certainly not up to the quality of the Warhammer Fantasy novels. And even though this is a reintroduction of Gotrek, I can't really recommend it. It's not really so bad it's good. It's just so boring it's, well, boring. And it just drug on and on and on when I actually listened to it. And since I was a fan of Warhammer Fantasy, yeah, it's kind of good to see Gotrek, but he's in complete crap, and thus it just was extraordinarily disappointing. And so, I am General Lotz, wishing you good Demon Slayer, and good Dragon Slayer, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video,